Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to have the honor to be the first keynote speaker. My name is Matteo Loglio, and today I'll be talking about uncharted territories. So I believe that this subject is very much related with this overarching narrative of this year's conference, which is Design in Perilous Times. So peril has the same meaning as danger, and it's easy to see why this is relevant today and why we're talking about danger and perilous times. So there are many alarm bells ringing these days, and rightfully so, related to our design practices, some not so much. But my point is focused on how we can reinvent and fix things, building new products and tools, improve the ones we have, and venture into new unexplored, uncharted territories. And so my goal today is to offer a frame for peril as not something that is necessarily negative, but rather a multidimensional kind of situation that offers its own unique creative angles. So the way I want to talk about this subject is by using this geographical metaphor of a territory, and discovering new lands is something that has always been kind of part of my profession, of my career for many years as a designer, but especially venture builder, starting companies, venturing to the unknown, unknown worlds and unknown territories. And when you venture into the unknown, you have this feeling of exploring an undiscovered land and seeing things for the first time. And today I want to start with a perfect example for this. This is Jacques Cousteau. He saw many things for the first time. He was a very famous Frenchman, movie director, Academy Award winner, and most importantly, he was an explorer. I think many people know him for his movies. Basically, in his movies, there are many of them. Most of them, he spends a lot of time underwater, exploring the oceans and the seas. He spends weeks, sometimes months, underwater in these structures that they built, him and his crews. And sometimes they drink wine, smoke cigarettes. They have parrots in these houses, and other people in the crew doing living their life there. So they actually were creating these custom structures where they could live and do ocean research for many days and weeks. But okay, this is just an introduction to him. But the thing I want to talk about, the reason why I want to talk about Jacques Cousteau is because less people know that he took the first breath underwater from a gas tank. So he literally invented the scuba diving equipment that everyone uses today. It's the same design. It didn't really change much in the last 80 years. And it's still very similar to his invention. And the story goes that he was in Nazi-occupied France in 1943. So very perilous time. And he had this intuition of using pressurized gas to breathe underwater, rather than using the hose with the heavy equipment that were used before. He wanted something more agile, something that gives you independency. So he worked with his engineer called Magnon. He was building valves for fuel companies. And Cousteau asked him to adapt this valve for pressurized air so he could breathe underwater. And there is this entry in Jacques Cousteau's journal. When he went to Paris to meet this engineer, he got the prototype and decided to go out and test it. So he went outside of Paris in the Marne River, and with these super bulky, kind of heavy gas pressurized tanks. And imagine like in Nazi-occupied Germany, taking a train with these heavy tanks. And he went into the river outside of Paris. He went underwater and took this very famous first breath underwater. And I like to think that in that moment, he saw everything. He saw all the possibilities that he was opening up, all these new territories that he was creating, how this would create enormous progress for all the people that could use this technology to explore the ocean for generations to come. And it was not just a step forward for him and for his research and for his passion, but for whole humanity. So it was indeed a massive step forward. And why I want to talk about this is because with this invention, he basically discovered a new territory, which is very physical, very real, because it was basically opening up the exploration of the literal new underwater world, which makes up 70% of our planet. So it definitely opened up a new territory, a physical one. But today, I'm not talking about real territories. I'm going to talk about virtual ones and how these virtual territories layer up and take multiple dimensions in our lives. But the analogy is very similar. So I'll start from this. This is Oyo. This is our company, or at least a sketch of it. And our company has many floors, but of these floors, only one is real. And the real floor is this one. This is our studio in East London, where I'm talking from. It's basically based in this East London structure called Here East. And here, all the buildings are open source. They're designed with this parametric process using locally sourced materials. It's an experiment in architecture, basically. So, but all of this to say that this is the only physical space we have. All the other spaces are virtual. And so I'm going to talk a bit about these spaces and what they mean. So we have the workers space, which is where the team and myself, we do the actual work across multiple time zones, remote work, what everybody's been doing in the past few years. And so then we have the community space. The community space is where all the people in our Discord or our community join the conversations we have as people working in the company, but they join from their house, they're not involved, but they're part of the large community. So they interact with each other, interact with us, take part in the conversations. And finally, we have the AI space. So the AI space doesn't work like the others. It doesn't have any time zone, and the space is quite complicated in there. And I'm going to talk about that later. But first, I want to talk about this virtual structure, because you may think, well, this is kind of normal. It's nothing new. It's not unique because everybody was working physically and then we all moved remotely. So that's what we've been doing. But in our case, it was a bit different because we were not an evolution. We were not physical before because we didn't exist before. So basically, we are virtual by design. So we decided to act in a virtual space, and then we built everything else accordingly. And this is possible because we started our company within the pandemic. So we had a massive constraint driven by perilous times, because these perilous times forced us to build this structure that was previously unknown to us. And we probably would never think about it if it wasn't for the perilous constraint. And it's working so far. So I guess, well, when I talk about this, normally people have a lot of questions about launching a company during the pandemic. And I think this deserves a separate talk. But I think, long story short, we launched it in February 2020, so just in time. And the funny thing is that we launched it right here in IXDA 2020. Well, it's not here, it was in Milan, in a real space. And my co-founder, Simone Rebaudengo, launched it during that conference. And so that was a giant uncharted territory, a dark uncharted territory, not the conference, but the pandemic, what came after the conference. So it was a big uncharted territory that we had to build on top of it. And we survived. We managed even to build the company and grow it. So it's working. But I think the bottom line of this is that I don't believe this is fundamentally anything new to work remotely in virtual spaces as a concept. It's a story as old as the internet. People collaborating online, Wikipedia, doing all of that. But for a number of factors, lockdown, better software, more virtual money, it definitely accelerated tremendously, and it's becoming the norm. rather than a singular example. And it's creating all of these virtual lands, like our virtual land, that are not just made out of content, but it's actually people working together to build things. And I have an example here, which is Web3. I'm experimenting a bit with some Web3 libraries and code. And I don't want to explain what Web3 is. Some of you maybe heard about it. Some of you might be very passionate about it, but I'm just playing around with it as this idea of decentralized internet. And I'm playing around with a couple libraries. One is called Terra, the other one is called Solana. And they're used to build smart contracts on the blockchain, right? It's a bit like Ethereum, but much better, a bit more modern. And as you can imagine, these are very complex pieces of technology. They're trying to reinvent the internet in a way. So, and you know, the infrastructure and everything. So it's very complex. And the dev communities, people actually building these things are like 20, 30,000 people, maybe a bit more, but in these ballpark numbers. And they work online together every day, trying to build these things in these spaces that are open, so anyone can join and start contributing in real time and try to explore and build on these uncharted lands. And building on this, I have this feeling that there is no examples to copy and paste. There is, sometimes you ask a question, you're the first person asking that question. And you know, you have to find a solution with the others. And it's an interesting relationship also with the other people in your own same situation. And it's very humbling because you ask for help a lot, you know, and it's something that you're forced to do it. And I think there is this message that I screenshotted from one of these servers about this person that was saying, you know, if there's tons of examples to copy and paste, you're late. If you're confused because there's no documents, that's good. You've discovered a secret that has yet to be revealed to the rest of the world. So it's this idea that we're all trying to build something without really know what we're doing in a way, almost. And I feel this is kind of translating in a lot of things these days. For example, I play a lot of video games, and these days games, even AAA games, get released in beta. Look at Battlefield, you know, they were released full of bugs, unplayable, and people are kind of okay with that. I mean, they still buy them, but it really feels like living in a kind of a world in progress. And I think it's cool. It's great. I like it. And you feel you're into something new, and it's something that nobody knows, and you're there before anybody else. It's kind of being Jacques Cousteau, and this is our ocean, maybe. And I think the same philosophy that we see in these servers, in these collective projects, we're also trying to embrace it on a smaller scale in our newborn company. So this is a screenshot from our public Discord where anyone can join. You can join, everyone can join. And we have hundreds of people, I think around 600 people now. And it's been public just for a few months. And you know, why we decided to do that? We decided not to use a private chat for our team. So we don't use, for example, Slack or Teams or those chats, but we use Discord, which is also public. So you can have private chats, but it's also public. So anyone can actually enter, have a chat with me, my co-founder, with the people working in the team. And it's cool because anyone can join, and it's free, and it supports many thousands of people online together at the same time, which was not possible a few years ago. It was very difficult. And the cool thing is that our reality is one of many thousands, maybe millions. So you can be in our public space, in other public space at the same time, and have multiple conversations with people, and creating these little enclaves of specialized group of people interested in very specialized things. So we created this virtual space where people can hang out, we can have a chat, click some links. It's like having almost a public facing real space, but in the virtual world, some kind of storefront that people can enter and have a look. And, you know, they can be in these many spaces at the same time. And I think it's quite powerful, and it works for us. Until so far, it's been working. There's not that many people to manage, but we share our links. We share job opportunities. We share our work before sharing it on social media so that people can give us early feedback. And we can also testing things, it's good. And also have more people being part of the conversation, because we build products, we build things. So it's good to have more voices in the creative process. The thing is that we have this virtual space, and we're not always there to manage it. So we had to come up with something. So we created this virtual person that hangs out in our virtual space. So we created this thing called Robbie, and Robbie is our non-human creative director. So it lives in the AI floor, that thing on top where space is complicated. And so we thought that if we're going trans-spatial, so hybrid, physical and virtual and multi-dimensional, then we should also have some transhumanity in the mix as well. So we decided to create this intelligent, non-human virtual employee in our company, and we called it Robbie. And so now we are proud to say that we're a hybrid group of humans and machines, and Robbie is our AI creative director. And what does it mean? It means that under the hood, Robbie, it manages our Discord account as a bot, like a chat bot, but it also runs a bunch of AI models, like image generation, text generation. It also does language processing. So it also lives on Discord, but it lives also on Instagram. So we actually created an Instagram account for Robbie. It's at robbie.oyo. And where there, Robbie decides to post. So everything it decides to post, it's all its own stuff. So we don't write the post. We don't select the images. Robbie just generates images, quotes, text, and then once in a while it posts. It's been quite inactive for a few months now, but we're gonna restart it soon. But also because Instagram blocked us, because there is a bot policy on Instagram, and Robbie is technically a bot. So anyway, it also leaves comments on other people's profiles. So if you follow Robbie, it might be that it's gonna write you something at some point. It happens. Sometimes there are like 4 or 5 messages in blocks because it's not perfect. So it lives autonomously across these many touch points. It lives on Discord, it lives on Instagram, it leaves comments like, is anybody there? Because it feels very lonely. The space is so big, and it must be feeling really empty for the poor Robbie. Now I speak like a proud dad, but it's our little creature. And if I go back to when we created Robbie back in 2020, I definitely think it was one of those moments when we were like, okay, yeah, we created this thing. It's a prototype. We did it in 5 minutes, maybe an hour. And we think about it, is there anything like this? Because yeah, Instagram is full of bots. If you use Instagram for a while, you see a lot of bots. But do you know of any bot that actually acts like one? So a bot that doesn't pretend to be a human, a bot that embraces its own botness, proud to be a bot. I'm a bot. And, none of us knew an example of that. And, we're kind of attentive to these signals because that's what we do. So we were like, maybe it's one of those moments where you make something for the first time. It's the Jacques Cousteau moment, when you discover this new territory. And so we start thinking, well, we did this thing very quickly without thinking about it too much, but there is actually something here. Maybe in a few years, there will be hundreds, maybe thousands of AI profiles that are explicitly run by an artificial intelligence. So probably maybe Michela, the virtual influencer, and like her, there are many others now. Virtual influencers are everywhere, not just on Instagram, but also on other Asian social networks. And so imagine these accounts that are currently run by teams of marketing people, but with an actual intelligence. So trained by these marketing teams and engineers to be able to act autonomously, so to have an intelligence, to be able to have genuine interactions with other humans and bots, and post content that is generated by the AI. It's not too far in the future. It's probably something that is already happening to some degree. And so imagine merging that with some kind of intelligence, then we have an AI, an autonomous influencer. So, and if that's the case, then we have to design for this new territory. So it's a design opportunity, and we're creating opportunities by doing these experiments, finding new territories. And I think that now that I think I touched upon AI, it's a big part of the work we do. So there, I can talk a lot about AI, but in the context of uncharted territories, I think that it's still very much uncharted. And I know it definitely seems like the opposite, because it's been very hyped in the past few years. Everyone is doing something with AI, but there's so much more that we can do, so much more that it will change. And I'm not talking about the usual things like engineering, data science. Also because we're not engineers or data scientists, we are designers, we are creatives or artists, and we do experiments in these fields. And I think in that field, we're barely scratching the surface. There is not so much. And the uncharted land here, the potential is massive. And I'm not talking about automation, stealing our jobs, but rather what we call a new framework for subjectivity, which is the ultimate force behind any creative action like art, design, or any creative output. So I have the perfect example for this. This is a project that explores exactly that, subjectivity, but from an object, or in this case, a body of water that doesn't have an intelligence. It's called Natural Networks, and we did it for the London Design Festival back in 2017. So this project is 5 years old already. It's on water. So it's a coincidence that it's on water, and I'm talking about Jacques Cousteau. But the design is very much inspired by these lifeboats that you can often find on the London canals, and it looks a lot like the ones that Jacques Cousteau was building, but it's just a parenthesis. So this project, I'm going to talk about how it works and what it does. We also re-proposed it for the Festival Letteratura in Italy in 2021. But the project starts with this idea, with this philosophical concept, very well expressed by Ludwig Wittgenstein, when he said that if a lion could talk, we would not understand it. So we did a project on the London canals. So we kind of shifted it. So if a river could talk, we would not understand it. And so what does it mean? It means that if a river could talk, it would probably have so many different words to define a wave, for example, or some subtle variations in the water, so that it would have words and concepts that are not familiar to us humans, so we will never understand, because we just think in different ways. Our world is not the world of the river. So we took this and tried to build this. So if a river could talk, what would it say? So we started by putting sensors, environmental sensors, so light, temperature, motion, time of the day, into these floating buoys, so these floating little spheres, and we placed them on the London canals. There are like 5 of them. And so then these data were then sent to an AI, so a computer with an AI model trained to generate poetry. So we trained it on many books of 20th century poetry. And so what it was doing, if the boys were detecting low temperature and low light at 5 a.m., then the AI would write a poem about a dark and cold and misty morning on the London canals. So in this way, we created this kind of framework where we took reality and then turned it into feelings using these sensors. And then we took these feelings and turned it into personality using the AI. So then we have poems that are not written by a human, but are written by an artificial intelligence as a subject. So this is the new frame of subjectivity. And I want to show a couple poems. So I also stop talking for a few seconds. So here you can see the little text on top of the letters is the value from the sensors and how that gets converted into natural language by the AI. And I think to build on this, I think there's so many questions, right? Like when you do something like this, you can only end with more questions than when you started. So what happens when machines start to write poetry? It is not a random gibberish, but it's actual poetry that looks like human poetry. Is that so much different from a human written poem? Does it have less value because it's written by a machine? If I feel something reading it, is it the same? Or I don't know, I'm just asking the question. But when machines start to make art, start to have a point of view, becoming a subject, what are the implications? When a river can write poetry, when a lion can write poetry. So when machine art will be undistinguishable from human art, if I make a book of AI poetry, who is the author? Am I the author? Is the AI the author? Well, I don't have an answer to any of these questions, but it's something we might have to answer very soon. And if you want to take this one step further, so as to imagine the famous centaur model of interaction design with AI, so a complementary relationship between humans and machines working together as one. So how can we augment traditionally human processes? And we've been exploring that. How can we augment a process such as glass blowing or other artisanal activities? And we are experimenting on a creative process where humans and machines work together to develop new products. And we called it artisanal intelligence. And we are creating these new products that I can't show right now because it's being produced right now by one of the oldest metal artisans in Europe. It's a long and beautiful story, but I can't say it right now, but it's coming. So, you can join our Discord that I was showing earlier, or, you can keep an eye on our social media and so on. We're going to talk about it very soon. But it's going to be like an experiment, of course, like the first product made by a collaboration of humans and machines. And I think like one thing that I hope is important to take away from this is how important is to simplify technology in order for many people to access it. And these projects I was mentioning earlier are made and run by thousands of people working together. So the more people, the easier it will be to find a solution and so on. So I think one thing that I think personally is that in general, us people working in tech, we can do a better job in trying to make this understandable. And I mean, like, technology as a means to identify and build on this virtual lens. Because, you know, if I know what blockchain is, then I can start to get interested in the centralized web and so on and so forth. But I think us, as people who already know what these things are, we should definitely make an effort to encourage people that are not in technology or in design or engineering to approach this subject. And we can do this in many ways. I'm going to show some examples of that. But the way we do it, for example, is through experiments. So show little things that maybe we can do in one day and then publish something so people can get excited about it. And the other one is open products. So products that you can look inside and are open source, and we show the magic inside of it. And how can we talk about complex technologies in very simple terms as a child would basically understand it? So this is where it all started for me. This is Cubetto. It's a project from back in 2013 when I was 24. And we started this company, my friend and I, with the ambition to provide tools to teachers, as the curriculum back then required children as young as 4 to learn basic programming concepts, and there was nothing. There was no product, no resource available to teachers back then, and they had to teach these concepts to children. So we looked in the research, constructivism, Jean Piaget, Seymour Papert, Montessori, and we came up with this interface that is basically a tangible programming language for children. And so we had to basically simplify this very complex idea of sequencing and programming and programming logic into something that a child as young as 4 could use to write sequences of code. So this is what we came up with. We launched it on Kickstarter. We raised 1.6 million from users, and we launched a product that enabled us to grow the company that now manufactures and sell these products to children all around the world. And it's an open source product. So the code, the hardware, the design, everything is publicly available online. And it's currently used by children all around the world, I think millions of children. And it's used, and it's so widespread because it doesn't have any numbers, letters, text, language. It's only colors and wood. So any child from any cultural background can use it. And I think this is just one example, but it is something that I see more and more people releasing the designs of their products, writing a lot of documentation, releasing something just as a quick experiment. I have another example. This is a book that I wrote last year called Many Intelligences, and it's still a product for children. It's a book. It's a book for children. It's not a product. It's a book for children that I wrote and illustrated, and it talks about intelligence. Because I want to introduce children to these subjects that I get exposed to every day, and they make me think a lot about it. And I think wouldn't it be cool if we can write something so simple about these very complex things that even a child could understand it. So in the book, I talk about intelligence as a force in the universe that transcends humanity or animals or plants or inanimate objects even. And the concept that I want to pass with the book is that there could be a future, maybe not so far from us, where everyday objects are intelligent, where your toaster could decide to stop toasting bread and decide to study literature instead, go back to university, or your lawnmower decides to take a trip to India to find itself instead of cutting the grass in your backyard. And so all of this might happen, it might not, but I think it's such an interesting thing to get children to start thinking about it and open up their mind with so many questions about the future. And the last one I want to show, it's another project. It's an open source project that we released as it lives on the Google AI experiments. It's called NSYNC Super. It's a musical instrument. It's a synthesizer for the musical people in the audience. It basically synthesizes new sounds, and it does so with an algorithm called NSynth, which was developed by the Google AI team. And it's very powerful. It generates new sound by combining existing sounds, but it was very technical, very scientific. You know, they released some tools, but there was no way for a musician to use it. So we designed this instrument, this interface, this physical thing that a musician can put next to their keyboard or whatever they're using, plug the MIDI cable in, and they can actually use the NSynth algorithm. And musicians are using it because we released the designs as open source. Grimes used it. She said recently that she used it in her album Misanthropocene. Other musicians are building their own, using it in their musical compositions. And so this idea of making technology accessible by making it very simple to use. And the last thing I want to talk about is how we also try to work in education by running workshops in schools, cultural centers, educational institutions all around the world. And this is this idea of trying to transfer this knowledge that we kind of build up by working in these projects, in these fields. And these workshops are all around artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, and we do them in art schools, design schools, so students can be hands-on, write their own algorithm, break them, and create new creative stuff with technology. And we think that by giving these tools, not just the open products, the accessible experiments, the educational activities, we think that these are all little things for people to help discover these new territories and finally build on top of them. So I want to end saying how pioneering these territories is not only doable, and it's not something that we are all doing to a certain degree, but it becomes even more necessary in perilous times. And so this is something that I've always been doing and that I love doing. And as I was saying earlier, most recently, we even started a company with this ambition. So Oyo's mission is to turn emerging technologies into accessible, everyday, and ultimately sustainable reality for humans and beyond, like Robbie. And our way of doing this is design things for a less boring future, because we ultimately believe in the power of play, and we try to make fun products, unexpected experiences, and while providing simple tools and knowledge to everyone, so that we can discover more uncharted territories like Jacques Cousteau, discover more lands, breathe underwater, and find new things in perilous time. And playfulness probably will not save the world, but at least we have fun trying to save it. So thank you.